It's the Call Kevin podcast. It's the podcast of your dreams. It's the Call Kevin podcast. Call and ask things. Podcast heaven with Call Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Hello, love from Houston. I saw you last year in Houston, and I'm really hoping I get the chance to see you again this year. Just wanted to drop by and say hello. I like singing along to your podcast intro, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks, Kevin.
It's the Call Kevin podcast. It's the podcast of your dreams. It's the Call Kevin podcast. Call and ask him things. Podcast heaven with Call Kevin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Call Kevin, my weekly show where you leave a message on my website, kevinjamesthornton.com. And every week I listen and respond just for you and everyone else who's listening. I'm really loving making this show. I'm getting such good feedback. I can tell that it is clicking in the universe. So I'm having a good time. I'm glad you are too. This week, I'm headed to Buffalo, New York, Long Island, New York, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. All of those shows are on sale now on my website, kevinjamesthornton.com, as well as like 70 other cities for 2025. So if you'd like to have a fun evening, if you'd like to laugh, come on out. You'll have a great time. Let's get started with our first message.
Hi, Kevin. It's Deirdre from Bloomington, Illinois. I hope you'll come and do a show there. Screw Bloomington, Indiana. I was wondering, when's the last time you had a meal where you were like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. I'm so happy right now. I could die, or I will eat this for the rest of my life and be happy. Sort of related, I just wanted to comment, when you were doing those short videos where you were making a recipe from like Bible study or whatever, I haven't laughed so hard in my life.
Oh.
Those were fucking great. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people liked those. I only made 6 or 7 of those. They were a lot of work. I'm always, experimenting with ideas of what to put out there. And I know people loved those cooking videos, but it was just, most of the time, it's just me by myself. And those videos were like an all afternoon production. So maybe I'll do more of those. Maybe I need someone to help me. I have meals that are like that pretty regularly. I seek out amazing food pretty much nonstop. And this new neighborhood that I live in, some of you know, I moved to a neighborhood in Cincinnati, Ohio, called Over the Rhine, and it is full of really incredible restaurants. For example, have you guys heard of the Olive Garden? No, we have a ton of really brilliant restaurants. On my block alone, I have a really cool French restaurant on one corner. The other quarter is a little steakhouse. There's a restaurant that I really love called Nolia. It's New Orleans inspired food. It is so good. And they change their menu like 4 times a year. I love seeking out great food. When I'm on the road, it's a little bit different because I'm in a place where I don't know what's going on, and maybe I'm on limited time. So I have to get to my hotel room and take a nap, take a shower, get to the show. So I usually seek out, I've said this before, a Whole Foods. The Whole Foods hot bar is a pretty regular for me. And I don't know if there's anything on the Whole Foods hot bar that makes me lose my mind. I used to, in the early days of my Whole Foods hot bar relationship, is that what we're going to call it? You go into Whole Foods thinking, oh, I'm going to have something healthy. I'm going to get a salad, maybe some steamed vegetables, and then you end up eating the macaroni and cheese and mashed potatoes. Which those are probably the best things on the Whole Foods hot bar, and I try to avoid those. Was that an answer to this question? Not really.
Hey, Kevin. I love what you do, and
Thanks.
I also have been enjoying you talking about just like how social media kind of affects our society and trying to move away from it. And my question is, what is the most fascinating or exciting book you've read recently, or podcast you've listened to, or even just thing that you've read? And on the subject of kind of like social media or attention spans and all that, I wanted to share two books I read recently, which I found fascinating and would recommend to people if they're interested in that.
Let's hear it.
The one I just finished is called, it's from 2014, and it was written by and for app developers, and it's called Hooked: How to Build Habit-Forming Products by Nir Eyal. I'm not sure on the, might have messed up the pronunciation, but that's it's about how to make apps and products that are kind of addictive, and I found it very helpful to read and understand how that works so that I can kind of like combat it, I guess, for myself. And the other book was called Stolen Focus by Johan Hari. That's the one that referenced the Hooked book. And it's about how smartphones affect our attention spans. I don't know. I think it's important for us, like users of social media and all that, to understand how these things kind of hijack our brains. Also, just thanks for everything you do, and hope your day is lovely. Bye.
Some of you know that I have been writing a book the last few months. The last reading spree I went on was right before I took my hiatus to write my own book. And I was reading books. There's this thing you might not know. When you are in the middle of seeking out a book deal, you do, or they do, these things called comps, which are you find books that might be similar to your book, and they research how they sold. They do this whole like spreadsheet of the numbers and what sold what where and to what demographic, but they're looking for maybe 8 to 10 books that your book might be grouped in with if it existed. And they run all these numbers and decide a bunch of things based on what your book might do. It's called they're called comps. So a couple of the books that ended up on my comp list, oh, that sounded weird. My comp list was Augustin Burroughs' Running with Scissors. So I read that before I started writing, and that's a quirky little like slice of a weird person's life. I really enjoyed that. And I also read that was on my list was The Bedwetter by Sarah Silverman, and that was really cool. It's almost like, and I ended up sort of doing my book in a similar way. The first half of her book is this really charming story of her childhood, and she was struggling with wetting the bed. And it's really lovely. And I think that ended up going on to have a stage adaptation, I think. The second half of the book is more just like humorous musings from Sarah Silverman. Pretty cool. Since I'm talking about writing my own book, this is maybe too deep for the beginning of the show, but here we go. I've been, is struggling the word? I don't know. I've been working through this thought, and I'd like to know what you think, because I really am not sure exactly the direction I want to head with this. If you listen to my stories on TikTok and Instagram, you might realize that I was a pervert when I was a child. I say that jokingly, but you know, a lot of my more viral stories were, you know, trying to get my grandma to take me to this place called Studio Art, and I didn't understand what it was, and what, you know, or telling my grandma that I love strippers. You know, just funny kid stuff, I think. But I've been joking that like I was a pervert when I was a kid. I'm writing these stories, and there are lots of stories like that. And then, you know, who I eventually became as an adult, I might still joke around that I'm a pervert. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm sort of joking, and if everything is consensual, then we're good, right? But I'm dealing with this thing. How do I express this in a way? This is right off the top of my head, so I hope it's not a clusterfuck of thought right now. We live in a world where people are very skeptical. A lot of people are very skeptical and suspicious of gay people. And not that I want to bow to that or anything. I'm going to write my book as honestly and truthfully as possible. But I do ask myself questions like, is this the message the world needs right now? This thing happens a lot in culture and society with gay people specifically, where we go through eras where we feel like maybe we should tone ourselves down so that people don't feel threatened by us. Maybe, we need to present ourselves. The word is heteronormative, you might have heard before, of like, we need to make sure that the straight people think we are just like them. You know, we bake muffins and wear sweaters and we don't even think about sex. We're totally harmless. And it's sort of like toning down our humanity, toning down things that are not even wrong in any way, so other people don't feel threatened. I'm not into doing that, but I'm aware of the climate of the last few years, and I don't know many more years. Like I'm telling, how do I say this? Maybe I should have thought this out before I started riffing on it on my podcast in minute 10. This thing happened a few years back in Florida with the whole "don't say gay" thing. And it's almost like they flipped the story on us and put us on the defense about something that isn't even quite real. That was a horn outside. That was not a sound effect on the show. Don't say gay. It's like this, there's teachers in the classroom trying to push something on children. And that's not really quite what's happening, but that message came out. And then if you say anything now that's like wanting to make sure if there are gay children among you that they know that they are safe and loved. It's like we're suddenly on the defense of like, oh, so you are trying to talk to children. No, here's the thing. You might not think, if you're just a regular old straight person, I know that gay kids exist because I was one. I was 13 with Kevin's brain, and I was in a world where I did not feel safe, and I did not know that people would love me if they found out about the real me. I did not know that. So I think, like myself, a lot of people, if they want to put into the world of like, oh, I remember what it was like when I was a kid, I want to make sure it's easier on other 13-year-old Kevins. Oh, do you have an agenda? You know what I mean? It's like this constant loop of that. Where was I going with this for my book thing? This thought is kind of hijacking the show. I'm going to circle back around to this in a minute, I promise. That thought is not done. That was part one. Is there anything else on this page? Let's see what this is.
Hi, Kevin. This is Alex.
Hello, Alex.
I've really been pondering your topic from your newsletter this week.
Alex is a show regular
about social
now.
Media. And it made me think about Christmas letters. I'm a millennial, born in the 90s, and growing up, my mom would pen a page-long letter to friends and family at Christmas time, detailing what had gone on in our family's life that year, any accomplishments, trips we'd taken, sports and activities my brother and I were into, what we were up to. And I always got so excited to help my mom put together the letter. It was such a genuine way to connect with people. And we would get letters back in return from people. And it truly felt exciting because in a lot of cases, you didn't know everything that people had accomplished that year. You maybe had talked to people here and there on the phone, or maybe exchanged some cards at like birthday time. And maybe for like the family members, you had like seen or visited them. But you truly didn't know what they had done that year. And it felt so fun to open a letter and hear about their year. And that's all been taken away with social media. You can log on to an app now and see that someone took a trip to Mexico or got a new job or had a new baby. And that excitement has gone away. And I miss the true, genuine connections that something as simple as Christmas letters brought each year.
Yeah, a lot of you have responded to this idea I've been putting out about how I think that social media is simultaneously incredible and it's hurting us in a way too. And as the world changes and technology happens, there was probably a point in time when TV started happening. Everyone was like, no one even listens to the radio anymore. Now everyone's just glued to the TV. Things change. Technology changes. I do think we're in a bit of a different moment right now because people are becoming dramatically more isolated. And I think that's the issue. I mean, obviously, technology, cell phones, social media, all of that's here to stay and more. AI is breathing down our necks. I am figuring out how to get people to tune into themselves and each other a little more. That's the part of our humanity we can't lose. I think it already is showing itself to be bad for us. So, make your Instagram reels or your Substack thing or whatever. And also don't lose the real, visceral, looking into each other's eyes, human existence. I'm about to send out the Secret Sunday message. And a lot of you, by the time you're watching this, will have already read it. I've been doing this thing where I'm really big on bringing some flowers into my house. It's a thing I started doing last year. After I went through a big breakup, I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to live or even where my home was. So I stayed in a lot of very temporary scenarios last year, a lot of hotel rooms and Airbnbs. And I started doing this thing that if I was in a place for more than a couple of days, at the grocery, I would grab a cheap little bouquet of flowers or even a single flower and bring it into my temporary living space because it felt nice. It was just for me. It was a little thing for me to touch base with the real world, even though my spaces were temporary, and it felt good. And I liked looking at the flower I brought into my temporary home. So I'm doing this thing where I'm suggesting that other people try that out too. Bring flowers into your house. And we also have all of these, I think, preconceived ideas about what flowers mean. I think when a lot of people hear me say that, they might go, "Oh, no, that's a waste of money. I shouldn't do that. That's extravagant." And flowers can be not expensive, It doesn't necessarily need to be. It represents extravagance to us. It represents spoiling ourselves. It might represent someone with romantic interest. It's a gesture. Maybe I don't deserve that. Maybe I don't deserve flowers. What if I just bought flowers for myself for no reason, just because I wanted to look at them? I'm trying to encourage people to find ways to touch themselves and each other. See, I'm a pervert. Back on the pervert thing. So when in one of the stories in my book, I'm writing about how when I was 13, my friend's mom had this box of Playgirl magazines in her bedroom, and I would sneak into my friend's mom's bedroom and try and look at her Playgirls. And that story is in my book. It's a funny story. But it's like the world we live in, I know a lot of people will see that through this immoral, perverted lens. See? Gay people, they're just perverted. They're immoral and bad for society. You take that same story about a 13-year-old sneaking a look at some Playboys, and all of culture is ready to give him a high five for being a dude and looking at boobs. That 13-year-old does not need to have any kind of crisis about it whatsoever, because that is just sort of how it should be. That was part 3 of my pervert story. We'll keep unraveling that as the episode continues.
You are listening to the Call Kevin podcast.
Hi, Kevin. Like you, I grew up in a conservative Christian household in the 80s and 90s, and I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on the Buttercream Gang. Thanks.
Wait, what? Wait, what did he say? I'm sorry, we have to play that again. It was short.
Hi, Kevin.
What?
Like you, I grew up in a conservative Christian household in the 80s and 90s, and I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on the Buttercream Gang. Thanks.
The Buttercream Gang? Hold on. I don't know what that is. That's why the first time he said it, I was like, wait, what is happening? What is the buttercream gang? Hold on. It's a movie. It's like a kid's movie from 1992. This happens to me a lot. And it's funny, you don't realize how big of an age gap there can be within one decade. I did this thing for a comedy club promo a while back, and they filmed me eating a bunch of 90s snacks. They kept like surprising me with different snack foods from the 90s. But it was all stuff that you would put into like a kid's lunchbox in the 90s. And like, which I get why you would do that. But like in 1994, I was chain smoking cigarettes in a gay bar. like I don't know what Crustables are. But you know, there could be that big of a generational gap within the 90s. The Buttercream Gang is a kids movie in 92. In 1992, I was 18. I just moved to New York City and I was hanging out at the Limelight. What? I was still a Christian, so I wasn't doing anything bad. I was at the Limelight to minister to the sinners of New York City.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Good.
I'm looking forward to coming to your Baltimore show on the 26th. I bought tickets a long time ago. I was also thinking about your cat. I hope your cat's okay.
He's getting better.
Definitely take it back to the vet if it starts
Slow
peeing
progress.
everywhere. As a pet owner, I know that potty issues definitely are like
It's been
your
awful. It's been so
pet trying to
stressful.
tell you, I don't feel good.
We've got his medication worked out. He's getting better.
I wanted to compliment you on your attempts to create intentional communities with your Secret Sunday message and your Substack. And I think intentional communities are really, really important right now because there are a lot of us that don't have traditional families for whatever the situation may be. It could be just because of political reasons. You know, in the past few years, some families have totally separated because of their different political views. And some of us are LGBT families that had to separate for moral reasons. You know, some people have different morals. Anyway, I think that intentional communities are the way of the future for a lot of us. Not just intentional communities, but like communal living, which I'm really interested in for my family. Like a co-op or maybe an eco village where it's really like an LLC and everybody buys into the property and there are houses to live in and there's a communal building, but like with an eco village they would do things to like get solar panels, grow gardens, stuff like that. Co-ops would just be more like
Oh, it just stopped suddenly. I hadn't thought about that, but I think you might be right that just the way, at least the U.S. is going, if our social safety nets are all gone, we'll have no choice but to turn to each other. That's an interesting thought. You could be right. It's almost like how in the US, if someone has a health problem, they have to start a GoFundMe to pay for their health problem, which is so dystopian. But that's what else do you do? There might be more solutions like that. We have to turn to each other within our neighbors. You're probably right. I used to be really interested in the idea of communal living. There's a commune in Chicago called Jesus People USA. And the story, I think, is fascinating. They they were part of like a 70s Jesus movement, like hippie Jesus people. And they ended up in Chicago, and they lived in a church basement. There were just like several people just sort of like working together. You know, they were poor and they were just trying to band together to live. And they just kept growing and growing. And right out of high school, one of the first little experiments I did, because by the time I graduated high school in 1991, I was class of 92, but I graduated early because I'm a genius. No, I'm kidding. Or am I? They had purchased this like hotel in Chicago, and there were like 500 people living in this hotel. And I thought that was fascinating. And I went to stay with them. In my mind, I was maybe going forever. I didn't last very long because once I got there, I realized, okay, this is not for me. I'm a super private person, and I liked the concept of like working together and sharing, but I want no one up in my business like that. So I couldn't hack it. But if there was like a community, like maybe what you're suggesting, where it's almost like an elaborate HOA or a weird GoFundMe. I'm into it. Communities of the future.
Hi, Kevin. My name is Lee, and I live in the woods in southern Louisiana, where I don't really fit in, but it's beautiful here, and I love the peace and quiet. I was mostly calling to respond to the talk on the last call, Kevin, about generations. I just wanted to say that when I was growing up, really my whole childhood through high school, we only had the four TV channels, NBC, ABC, CBS, and PBS. And every night on the news was the body count from Vietnam. It was every single night of our whole lives, and it was very effective. It made us feel negative toward war and negative to our parents' generation. And I think really spawned the hippies and the free love kind of movement. Um, I find it really ironic that now that we're in our 60s and 70s, the boomers, we seem to have become our parents, post World War II generation and become conservative again and, uh, anti change and kind of all the things that are going wrong right now. I guess you can blame on us. I take the blame, but uh, I was lucky to have very liberal parents, and I was a college professor. So I've gotten to see the younger generations, and I'm really optimistic about them. I think they are in touch with their own feelings and they care about other people's feelings. And I think that kind of the terrible state we're in at the moment, kind of this too shall pass, and we just need to walk through the fire for a little bit longer. Anyway, I really enjoy your podcasts and your shows and the religious child mind modification stories. And I appreciate you and talking about how you feel and how you think. I really enjoy it. So you take care of yourself, and Shamala Hamala to you and
You,
yours.
you know how when you say something that's kind of cringy and then you can't stop thinking about it and you lay in bed like, oh, I wish I hadn't said that. That whole message, I kept thinking about how on the previous caller, I joked that I'm a genius. And the whole time I was like, God, I hope no one thinks I secretly think that. I don't. And I was like, God, I wish I hadn't said I'm a genius. Graduating a year early from high school does not even mean anything close to that. I was kidding. I wish I hadn't said it. I'm sorry. You know what? This is a good chance. This is a good moment for a dance break. The generational thing that they were just talking about, we talked a little bit about that last episode, that how the Vietnam War was such like the defining moment for the boomer generation. When you can look back and there's like these huge moments. 9/11 was probably another one. More recently, the pandemic, that just changed us forever. But I like what they said about this too shall pass. A lot of people are anxious and scared right now. And I think and again, I think we're going through things quite not like we have before. But nothing's permanent. Everything will pass. This too will pass, regardless how you feel about it. I know some people who think what's happening right now is good for various different reasons. I'm not sure. I think it's not. But I can look back over time and see in history when we were in rough shape, and then things got better, and then things got rough again, and then things got better. It's just sort of how it goes. And then back on me being a pervert when I was a kid. So it's like in my book, I'm telling these stories, and that through line is there. That as a kid, I was like obsessed with. I have never raised kids, but I think all kids are kind of preoccupied with butts and boobs and poop. And then you grow and you want to look at naked people. And that's just that's just what people do. I always make a point of trying to put this message out into the world that I want, because it seems like a lot of people think that gay people, it's just all about sex. Why are you telling us about your sexuality? No one cares. Because it's not just that. It's not just pee-pee and poo-poo and butt. It's not poo-poo, hopefully, at all. It's not just, genitals. I'm a person. Gay people are people. Like when you're straight, you don't think about how much sexuality is all over every single thing that you do. And when you grow up and go to the movies and see a romantic comedy, and you fantasize that maybe someday I'll get married and then I'm going to hold someone's hand and then I want to go to prom and feel squishy and all the spectrum of things that your human life consists of, sexuality is woven all through it. And it's not about dicks and hoo-has. That's what I meant to say, not the poo-poo part. I mean, whatever you're into, if it's consensual. But it's just the human experience. But we're in a moment in culture where a lot of people are super ready to vilify gay people and trans people, having experiences that are just different than yours. And then pulling out the ultimate weapon of like, oh, are you trying to do something to children? No, I'm trying to kind of protect children that were like myself. Am I saying something really convoluted here in this episode? So my point is, I'm writing this book, and I'm like, I want it to be a timely message. Do I just write it? No holds barred. Listen to all these pervy stories of me when I was 13. As a joke. I don't really think they're pervy. I think the word pervy is funny. I was just a kid. Normal old kid. Experiencing normal old kid things in a world that didn't get him, And then I became this person. A huge part of my show right now is about sexuality, specifically speaking to people who grew up in purity culture in youth groups. Because I think when your brain is forming in that world and they're telling you there's something wrong with your body, they're telling you that you need to suppress every sexual thought until you're married, it kind of messes with you. Even if you decide to leave behind that ideology, those deep messages about your body and shame hang around. So I think it's actually an important, freeing thing to talk about. I'm answering my own question. I'm going to fucking talk about being a pervert in my book. This is the place where a commercial might go, but I don't really, this is a new show. I'm doing this all myself. I'm not really actively seeking out advertisers. But if they come along, I think that'd be great. I decided to do this new thing where for a while, indefinitely, I'm going to give this advertising spot to one of you each week. So if you would send me a message, let's see, where should you send me this message? Send it to, well, you can actually respond to me on Substack. My email is booking@kevinjamesthornton.com. That's the email address I send the Secret Sunday message list from. It's going to come from Substack tonight, but I think you can email me, booking@kevinjamesthornton.com, or try and get my attention in social media. DMs is a little trickier because some days those are overloaded. But I'm going to give this little spot to someone each week for free. If you'd like to share something about what you do or your little business or a charity or whatever it is you'd like to bring awareness to, write me a little script, email it to me, and I'll pick someone each week to feature right here on Call Kevin. A little free ad space until real advertisers come, not until paid advertisers come along. It's an experiment. I just made that up. Let's see how it goes.
Hi, Kevin. This is Amaya. I just wanted to provide a slightly different perspective for people to consider on social media. So, I am a millennial. I'm 40. I was forced by friends to join Facebook in college, back when you had to have a college, email address to even join. And, I've seen it grow and change over all of those years. Um, and it used to be pretty boring, and then it had like sort of its heyday, and now it's kind of descending into nastiness. And I would agree with a lot of people, like, it's an unhealthy place. They show you things on purpose that will get you upset. And at the same time, it has also been, as a disabled person, one of the only ways that I have been able to stay connected with other human beings. So I have good days where maybe I can use all my spoons and go do something fun, but I can't eat in a restaurant. I can't even host people for dinner at my house. I don't even have the spoons to go eat at somebody else's house. We have to mask because I'm immunocompromised. And there are days where I don't see anybody. Um, there are days where I might get like an hour of social contact, and it's rough. And I don't always have the energy to even call a friend or visit with a friend. And the friends that are left are the ones who are willing to come sit in my living room while I lay on the couch and just chat, or on a really good day, maybe sit in the backyard. But it's very isolating if you're largely homebound, if you're limited in what you can do, if you have good days and bad days, so you can't keep commitments and people label you flaky. And so Facebook has been a blessing in many ways for me, because I don't need a lot of energy to just scroll and see and like the wonderful things that are happening to friends, and try to give a hug or a little text PM chat, like, to friends who are having trouble, and to connect with other disabled people and groups, support groups and communities where we can get a lot of support. And so, millennials, my people, they've been trickling off for years, and now they're talking about leaving en masse, as are many people. And I feel like those of us that are being left behind are the elderly and the disabled, which is so often the case. And um, and it's hard because we're already two populations that are pretty isolated. And I'm really hoping that somebody actually does what I've heard a couple, whispers of people talking about, which is like to create an alternative, a real alternative, because like there is no Facebook equivalent to switch to. But I have heard some people talking about like creating a nonprofit version of something like Facebook, where the intention is to connect with friends and join interest groups and stuff like that. And I honestly really hope it happens because I understand why everybody's jumping ship. And I understand like Facebook isn't what it was, and there are a lot of really nasty people on it. But I also feel like um, there is this swath of the population that sort of constantly gets the short end of the stick that once again is being kind of left behind, and this was our way to connect with people when we don't have the energy to go out, and now it's basically going away because nobody we love is going to be on it. So just another thought, just another perspective on what social media is for people.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and reminding us that how it is an important tool for some people. It's an important tool for people, and that you rely on it to feel connected. I hear that. The thing you said at the end about, maybe someone could create a similar thing in a different way. I think we've all gotten so app fatigued because when TikTok was getting banned, every other day everyone was like, "We're all going to Lemonade. We're all going to Red Note. We're all going to Blue Sky," and it's like I don't want to learn another app, but I do think that Substack might be the thing. I looked at it at first and I was like, this looks maybe complicated. I don't want to look at it. But now that I'm getting into it, it's not that complicated. I actually do think it might be the thing. People seem to be getting on board with it, and communities seem to be developing. People comment and interact. I do like Substack, and I've been building my own thing there as well. For me, the only real my main motivation for saying let's do this differently, honestly, is my main reason is I don't trust the owners. That's where I'm at right now. I think that, our whole world is controlled by billionaires. We all know that. It's hard to know how to navigate. But on social media specifically, the big ones, I am concerned that we are being manipulated and divided and turned against each other so people can make more money. That's really the thing for me. It's like I want to take my people to a different place than that. I don't want to be some of the apps are very bad. Like, there's the one app that I don't even look at it now because when I do, it's like all of these like over the top right wing opinions. I'm like, I didn't follow this. It's like a manipulative tool. That's the thing I don't like. And that the addictive nature of it, I think, for some people, it becomes their whole existence. But I hadn't really considered for people like yourself who really, really need it. Yeah, many things can be true at once, I think. Thanks for that perspective. I'll keep pondering that.
If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator. Thank you.
Hi, Kevin. This is Katie calling. I just listened to your last podcast and your description of your drink situation, and it reminded me of a story of my own evangelical draconian upbringing. Now, just to preface this, I am a pastor's kid, and of course, anything that you've ever heard about pastors' kids, absolutely true. We are the worst, and I have no regrets about that. But one day I was playing with my older brothers. We decided to play hide and seek in the church. Of course, totally unsupervised because it was the 90s. So
It was the 90s.
Not with each other, but with an old pair of dirty socks. So we rolled up the ball of dirty socks. I don't know why. We just did. And then we would hide it in different places and someone would have to go find it. So we played it for a while. Then, of course, we just get bored and forget all about it and left. Well, the next week, everyone was commenting, after the church service, about the unique taste of the coffee. Now, it turns out that my brother had hidden the pair of dirty socks in the coffee maker, and no one bothered to look in there or check, so they made the coffee with dirty sock water.
Oh, no.
So, that's the time we gave everybody dirty sock coffee. Again, no regrets there. I did have one question.
I love dirty sock
Would you
coffee.
consider fundamentalist and evangelical to be the same thing? Or are they different? What's your opinion on that? Thanks.
Oh, there was a curveball at the end. I was still thinking about dirty sock coffee. I think today they mean the same thing. And they might have started out different things, but I think today they mean the same thing.
Hey, Kevin. I'm a Christian and I still go to church. I was raised in various non-denominational, what we call big evangelicalism, which it feels like a lot of the stories that you tell us on TikTok come from an experience in those corners. And I actually have a lot of sympathy going out to you, just that it sounds like it was a very wild time. And I just wonder if you ever think it would be interesting having, just in a world like now where more people talk than we used to before, and we do live in societies that allow for difference of opinion and things like that, would you ever be interested in sort of having back and forths about these kinds of things, Christian to ex-Christian? I feel like that could be interesting if it's done with care and love for one another. Of course, there would be a hope for me, of course, to be able to talk about these things, and I've been praying that the Lord would show them to yourself in a way was not revealed in these things in the 90s. But still find a lot of these stories hilarious, the way you do things, and I think you're a great comedian. Hope to maybe chat sometime. God bless.
In 2010-ish, it was 2010 because I was in Los Angeles. Someone made a Facebook group and invited all of our old church people, all of the youth group people, myself, everyone, all of our whole community. And it was like 100 people in this group. And this really elaborate conversation thread broke out between people who were still very much Christian, people who were very much in that same place, people who had moved on, people who were somewhere in between. And it was a really thoughtful, nuanced, civil conversation. And there's no way in hell that conversation could happen today on Facebook. 2010. And here we are 15 years later, not all that much time in the whole scheme of things. And we're such a different people because of social media. Like the overlords manipulated us into a different thing. We don't see each other as human anymore if we're just reading comments on the internet. And our ideas have separated us into really different camps. And the reason it works is because the issues are real. It's about real people, like trans people, for example. That's real. That's not a made-up issue. Those are real people. And so it divides us. It makes us emotional. They keep picking issues that fire us up to distract us, to take our money. I've been real big on class awareness. It's not right versus left. It's top versus bottom. Could I have a conversation with fundamentalist Christians today? Sure. Is part of the conversation going to be dismissing my humanity because I'm gay? Okay, I think it might. Because that's the place we're in. Could I be civil? Sure. Because I'm a genius. I'm kidding. I said it twice. I fully regretted saying it the first time. I went ahead and doubled down and said it again. What do we have time for? I mean, I'm kind of flipping through my menu here. Let's see. What else is on this?
Why are printers still so hard to set up in 2025?
Oh, yeah.
Printing was invented in 1440, so it doesn't make sense that 700 years later I still have to install drivers and they don't work, and then the print nozzles are clogged, and then something else is saying, and I just end up going to USB anyway. Why?
Yeah, right. There's a handful of things like that. It's like, why is this a struggle? I think about the real issue of our day, of all the things we've talked about on today's episode. Our biggest problem is passwords. I don't have it in me to make up new passwords. I've made up all the passwords I'm capable of. I'm far beyond making up the passwords that I can remember. Like now, if I get logged out of something and they're like, you have to reset your password. And then I enter something and they're like, you have to choose a password you've never used before. So now I'm going to make up a password that I will for sure never remember. So this is going to happen again and again. And now like my computer makes up these super elaborate nonsense passwords. Like here's a password. I maybe that's because I'm Gen X. I'm a boomer on this issue. I don't want the computer made up password. I want to make it up. I don't want that super long chain of letters and numbers because now I don't know it at all. Now it's just my computer making up a password. Now I can't get into my own account because my computer made up the password. Can we do something different that's not passwords?
Hi, Kevin. I love you, for one thing. I really love your grandma. I don't know if she's still around, but she
She's
sounds
not.
awesome. Anyway, when you said you needed another recording, I thought, okay. He said, make a weird sound. So I'll tell you about a weird sound I've been making since junior high. And it's just like this weird sound. It goes, like that. But we always do it whenever there's anything even remotely that could be construed as maybe vulgar or sexual or something, but not used in that context. So say you're having a conversation with someone and you say, gosh, this is so long. And I would go, like that. And now our kids do it. We've been doing it since we were in junior high, and now we're 50 something and we're still doing it. It is just constant. You would just anything. It's really great to do during football games because for some reason those football announcer guys, like, they use really weird terms that sound sexual. So we just say, oh, he's got it in the tight end. And you say, like that. So anyway,
Oh, I didn't
that's
do
my
it.
weird sound story. And
Hey,
again,
Kevin, this
love
is
you.
Conrad,
Mean
also
it.
from Winnipeg, Manitoba,
Oh, I
like your caller
overlapped.
from
Sorry.
last week, which is cool because I don't hear about many people from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I'm currently based in Southeast Asia, just moved from Hong Kong to Malaysia with my wife and three
Cool.
kids. And I keep on re-recording this message because I keep on rambling, but I'm just going to talk about one thing. One thing is I also deconverted from Christianity and the church and struggled with empathy and not judging. And part of my experience was intentionally kind of trying to expose myself to
Cool.
queer people. And I couldn't because they just weren't in my circle. And I started listening to a podcast called LGBTQ&A, hosted by Jeff Masters. And that was quite pivotal for me because I was finally exposing myself to people that are openly queer. And it was very helpful because suddenly, because, we're taught like, oh, to love everybody, but, same-sex attraction is a sin, or all this other things under that queer umbrella is a sin. But then it's so easy to judge people if they're not in your life, right? And then when I'm suddenly kind of exposed to these people in the podcast just talking about their life and their struggles and realizing, oh, they're human. like that's the missing sauce. That's the missing sauce, like in my whole Christian experience, is just being told how to view people without having those people in my life. I put on my IG story that I was kind of going through this transitional journey, and people actually messaged me that I know very closely who are queer, and that was very eye-opening to me, and that was very cool, because actually I'm not segregated from that community in my circle, just through my worldview. And it's like when I opened up, like when I kind of showed that I was open to understanding and being accepting, then suddenly people felt safe to disclose that to me. Just made me realize that, yeah, the queer community is already in my circle. um, and yeah, it just makes me really, I think it makes me really happy to know that. And I think that's really cool that, yeah, everybody in everybody's circle, it just, I guess, gives more perspective to be more empathetic and more loving and accepting, because you never know who you already know that might benefit from that. Anyway, I just want to share that. I'm probably going way over time now. Yeah, I am. Okay, anyway, awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Bye.
I will say it again. I'm really big on the opposite idea of something a famous person said recently. I think the biggest threat to society is the lack of empathy, especially in the US and probably Western culture wider. We're taught to be these every man for himself creatures. Fuck everybody else. It's only me. It's not even America first. It's me first. And it creates a sick society. And if we're going to tie everything together with a bow, I think that's one of the downfalls of social media, is it sort of strips people of their humanity, and we just see people as sound bites and ideas that we don't like. And we grow up in this culture where we don't nurture the part of ourselves that is able to imagine what it's like in someone else's shoes or stilettos. When your neighbor is healthy and happy, it makes your community healthier and happier. And it makes you healthier and happier. It's a better way. Thanks for hanging out with me this week, you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have a question or comment, go to kevinjamesthornton.com. Leave me a message. And while you're there, check out all the dates I'm doing in 2025. Consider coming to one of my shows. Hope to see you out there in person. Have a great week, guys. Bye.